Welcome back to Divorce TV. I've got some news for you from celebrities, and we've also got a lovely healing at the end of the show, as we like to do. I have an interview with an expert. We've got Henry Ellison, talking about money. And we've got a real life person sharing her shared story. So first, let's move on with the news. So we're going to start with the Orville star, Adrienne Palicki. This is in the Daily Mail. She files for divorce from Scott Grimes a second time after just 14 months of marriage. So both have been with the show in Orville for the duration of its 2-season run. The wedding came about 4 months after Palicki, who's been seen on TV shows such as Friday Night Lights and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Grimes, who's worked with MacFarlane on Family Guy and American Dad. And they revealed they were engaged. In January, she tweeted, "So happy to spend my life with you," at Scott Grimes, along with a shot of her holding up an engagement ring. The actress first filed to part ways from the star, 49, in Los Angeles back in July 2019, before asking a judge to dismiss the filing in November. But now she's filed again, according to TMZ. So, from the ridiculous to the disconcerting. The next story is in The Sun. Kim Kardashian, according to The Sun, won't abandon her husband Kanye West until he gets help. But she knew her marriage was over a long time ago, it has been claimed. The 39-year-old is refusing to divorce the rapper amid concerns he is in the midst of a manic episode caused by his bipolar disorder. After everything that's happened this week, she knows that she can't save her marriage and accepts it was probably over a long time ago. But she won't split, they claim, with him at his lowest point. She owes it to their kids to stick by his side until he gets help. Kanye, in the meantime, who is running to be the President of the United States, is holed up in a super secure bunker at his £11.8 million £8 million Wyoming ranch. It's claimed he doesn't trust Kim or her famous family, who he says are trying to lock him up with a doctor. Sources say the couple, who have been married for 6 years, have been at each other's throats for months and living apart. Almost immediately, the same paper reported that Kim is in fact going to be talking to divorce lawyers. If the intervention doesn't work, apparently, and Kanye continues down this path, Beverly Hills family law attorney Adam Michael Sachs says Kim could get Kane committed involuntarily within a day if he meets certain legal criteria, and she convinces a judge it's an emergency. The lawyer told The Sun she could tell the court that her husband is a danger to himself. She would have to go before a judge and get a court order. If she stresses it's an emergency, she could get the order right away. Whether this is actually happening or this is supposition by lawyers and The Sun, I don't know. But my question is, mental illness does seem to come up more and more in divorce cases. So, put it in the comments. What do you think? Do you think Kim would be right to wait to hold off from divorce proceedings until her husband's in a more rational state? Or do you think she should just get on with it? And maybe you've had mental illness affect your divorce, and what kind of repercussions has that had? So we'll finish on a slightly lighter note. Back in The Sun, this chap says, "My wife divorced me because I left my dishes by the sink." This is written by Matthew Frey. He says that after 13 years together, 9 married, and with a 4-year-old son, my wife decided she'd had enough. "I was a nobody blogger sitting in my small quiet house in Ohio, and suddenly I was deluged with emails from not just the United States, but also Europe, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa and the Philippines. I started writing as a means of working through it all, and in January 2016 I wrote a blog post called 'She Divorced Me Because I Left Dishes by the Sink.' Some men and women thanked me for saving their marriages. Others called me a moron and accused me of betraying my gender. It turns out relationship arguments related to things like a dish left by the sink are the sort of disputes a lot of couples have. And it tends to be an argument that never ends because the two participants are never actually discussing the same thing. He writes, my self-identity was one of being kind. So when she would angrily talk to me about something upsetting her, I was quick to defend myself against what I perceived to be unfair attacks. I'm sure some of us can relate to that. There are a lot of nice guys out there who are accidentally bad husbands, he says. Without my son's mother supporting me even after divorce, I would have missed parent-teacher conferences. I would have failed to send our son to school with properly completed projects. I would have dressed him in the wrong clothes and hundreds of other things already forgotten. A husband or co-parenting father unable or unwilling to participate actively, mindfully, competently in the business of childcare will quickly become like a second child. The men I work with, he's gone on to be a life coach, the men I work with struggle to understand how something that does not bother them can actually be hurtful and worthy of an emotional, stressful conversation. They view it as keeping the peace versus complaining about petty things, and place a higher value on peace than dealing with the confrontation. They miss how the constant deflection, defending and invalidation will prevent real peace from ever setting in. Change, he says, real change first requires buy-in. Things that seem minor can be important to someone else. Second, it requires consistently speaking and behaving in ways that show that. He says, now I'm a better partner to my son's mother in divorce than I ever was during marriage. Now we shall move from that more positive note now to our guest expert today, Henry Elliston, who is a chartered financial planner. Welcome, Henry. Thanks for joining us again. And I've got a few questions. I've got a few questions for you, and thank you for sort of interrupting your holiday in rainy Cornwall. Is it?
Rainy Cornwall, yeah. It's been okay until today, where it's absolutely hammering it down. But never mind. It's a good time to be on Divorce TV, really.
Perfect timing. Perfect. I wouldn't have liked to drag you out of the sun. So, what I'd like to know is, what's the sort of idiot's guide to cash flow forecasting? What exactly is it?
Well, it's a great question, and it's actually cash flow forecasting is one of the great tools that we use an awful lot with pretty much everyone we work through that's going through divorce. I guess to summarize what we do with the cash flow forecast is we're looking at two things. So we first of all we start by looking at your incomings and your outgoings. So incomings, what's your salary, what child maintenance credits are you getting, those sort of things, rental income, however, and what are your outgoings? So how much do you spend on your mortgage? How much do you spend on your shopping every week? Traveling, how much does school uniform and books and things like that cost you? So that's the first thing, because what we want to do is then work out whether or not you've got enough money to live the life that you want to lead. And the second thing we then look at is your liquid assets. But what's great about it is it allows us to build a picture. And I know so many of the clients that I work with, I can talk to them about numbers all day long, but quite honestly, the numbers just wash over their head. It means nothing to them. I don't obviously understand what 2 and 2 is, but you show them a series of figures and it just doesn't make sense. But what's great with cash flow forecasting is that we can actually build these numbers into a picture. So it becomes really obvious. If you've got a blue line, and that I tell you means you've got enough money, but if this blue line becomes red, it means you haven't got enough money. It becomes really easy to visualize. And the second great thing we do, as I mentioned just now, is then we then have a look at your liquid assets. So you might have savings as part of the divorce financial settlement. You might collect a share of a pension pot, for example, or some ISAs or other bits and pieces. But then you want to see that if you're using those to support your income, whether or not that pot of money is falling in value, or whether or not it's rising in value, or staying largely the same. So it becomes a really great tool of just having a look at your overall finances and seeing whether or not they're working for you as well as they should be.
Is there anything that people routinely miss out, or that you point out and that really surprises them that they just didn't think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, people, for example, I mean, in terms of investment returns and stuff like that, people find it very hard to understand that, what's the difference if I can get a 5% return on this, but only get, what you get in your cash accounts at the moment. It's even worse than it was a couple of months ago. So I think that becomes quite interesting. But actually, I think what's most interesting is just general affordability. Can I lead this life that I want to lead? With the money that I'm going to collect, is it affordable? Can I carry on living in this house, for example? Can I service the mortgage? And it might not just be what the mortgage lender's telling you as to what's affordable, but spending life on your own, of course, there are all these other costs that now you have to look after on your own, and it's just bringing that whole big picture in together.
I can see how that, with regard to before starting to negotiate a financial settlement in divorce, it's going to be a really good idea to have a clear idea of the costs. And I know that that's very rarely the case, and I'm sure that's why I send people to you. But what, perhaps you could say a little bit more about how you are able to really help put people in a good position to negotiate that financial settlement. And would you say, in a way, you help level the playing field for some of your clients? Perhaps maybe they weren't the ones who were dealing with the money, for example.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. So for typically the man looks after the money, and the wife looks after the kids. And so I find myself looking after women more than I do men. And I think you're right. The man knows that I've got X amount in this ISA and Z amount in this pension, and the wife may not understand the value of that money. And pensions. There's a whole new topic. We won't go into those, but different sorts of pensions that have different values attached. And it's really important to sit down with those who don't understand what value this pension has, what income it's going to provide, what capital value it has, to run through that so that they can build this picture. And then what I find is, if we do this early enough in the process, so really pretty much as soon as the financial disclosure forms have been submitted, we can then actually start to build this picture. So if you're then going on to mediation, you can go to mediation with a proper understanding of what the various assets are, what debts you might have, what costs you're going to have, what costs you have now, and how those costs are likely to change in the future. And what that then provides you with is a really strong position to start negotiating the financial settlement from. Because it may well be that emotionally, for example, you really, really want to keep the family home, but it might just be in the cold, harsh reality that actually it's not affordable. So there's no point in then going and getting all angry and stressed and worked up about keeping the house, if quite frankly it's not the right thing to be getting angry and stressed about, and actually be better served saying, look, I tell you what, let's split the house 50-50, but I'm going to have 65% of your pension. And so it just really opens up that conversation. And I think it's invaluable, especially in mediation, to be able to go with these different scenarios placed in front of you to show that you've really thought about it and you understand what the money is and what it means.
You're definitely in a better place to cut a deal, no doubt about it. And have you got any examples of the clients, without naming names, that you can give us?
Yeah, I mean, yes, of course I have, because we do it all the time with all these people. I mean, one intriguing one that I've worked on recently was for an elderly couple that are getting divorced, and the husband, very successful lawyer, had a defined benefit pension. So this is one that guarantees to pay you an income for the rest of your life, as well as other pots of money. Um, and it was fascinating to go through these different scenarios, because they're in their 60s now. It was very much, we needed to demonstrate that the wife needed a level of income so that she could retire comfortably, or lead the rest of her life comfortably. And by going through the cash flow forecast, what we showed was that I remember the exact numbers, I can't quite remember, but it was along the lines of that he needed to provide her with 56% of his defined benefit pension. Because if he was to keep hold of all that defined benefit pension, he was going to have to give her pretty much all of the family home, and the family home was worth about £2 million. So it became a really, really vital document because I mean, it went through the solicitors to his solicitors, and he understood the argument. It became clear. All right, yeah, no, I see that. I'll give her a bit more of my DB pension, but actually, then I keep more of these pots, and it actually worked out. It worked out really, really well for them. And I think it removed the aggravation because he could see there on pieces of paper this was thought through, made sense, and that actually she wasn't being greedy and trying to get all she could. She was just after a really fair settlement, and that's what we got.
And that's why I love financial planning, because it's exactly that. It so often turns what could be a really nasty argument over money into, oh right, that makes sense. And because you're able to work with, not just communicate to the other side, but in sometimes even couples will occasionally actually sit down with you together, won't they? Which is always nice when that happens.
Yeah. Right.
And so if I was to work with you as a financial planner, what information has to be supplied? Because I think also people are so overwhelmed with divorce, so they think, oh no, I've got to go through all those drawers and up in the attic. What kind of things have they got to find and give to you to do your job?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right, and I think it is overwhelming. More often than not, I work on the back of the information that's supplied in the Form E. So this is the Form E, is the financial disclosure document, and more often than not, in 90% of cases, people are asked to complete a Form E. The Form E in itself can be a pretty scary document. It's thick and it asks heaps and heaps of questions. And certainly if it's something that you're unsure of completing, you don't quite know where to get the right information from, then that's something we'll help you with. And it's certainly in terms of, I've got an ISA but I don't know what it's worth, or I've got a pension but I can't find it. That's great. We'll help you, and we can find out and get in touch with the insurance companies and what have you. The other thing, as I mentioned, is the cash flow is understanding what you're spending. And I think that's something we can certainly help with. But if I was to give you one tip about working out your budget planner, it would be, don't do it on last month's expenses. Go back over the last, certainly 3 months, but 6 months. I often tell a story of how for me May's the worst month. I've got a wedding anniversary and 2 birthdays that fall in the month. So for me, there's no point in looking at June, which is a great month, because nothing happens. I've got to go back through several months and bring all that data through. And it's certainly something we can help with, and we've got cash flow and budget planners and stuff like that we can provide free of charge, completely free of charge, if you need that, and that's going to help you.
I think it's important to point out, Henry, that when you say the worst month, you meant financially, because obviously you love your anniversary. Don't want you getting in trouble here. And my last question is, because you're doing projections, you're looking into the future, how based on a lot of factual information, but nonetheless, how accurate are the forecasts?
I mean, of course, that they can only ever be as accurate as the information that's put into them in the first place. But there are a huge number of assumptions. We don't know exactly what investment returns are going to be like. We don't know exactly what you're going to earn for the rest of your life. We don't know exactly when you're planning on retiring. And indeed, actually, if we're creating these settlements, these plans right at the beginning, we don't know exactly what the financial settlement's going to be. So they're a very, very good guide. But what's important as well is that actually once you've got them, that they are then updated to see that whatever plans you've agreed today, I know every client of mine's changes throughout their life. So you go back and you reassess and you have a look back and say, well, actually, I tell you what, I'm now thinking that, I'm, rather than having 55% of the house, I'm happy just to settle with half of the house, half of the proceeds of the house. Is that going to really, really upset my plans in the future? And for us, it's relatively straightforward just to run that back. So it's a case of constant iteration and checking. But in direct answer to your question, they're pretty accurate if nothing in your life changes.
But you can also run sort of risk analysis of what if scenario. So people can look at what might be a worst case scenario and take preventative action. And also it may work out better for them.
Yeah, and that's right. And we often work, a kind of normal. This is what happens if life continues as normal, and then we'll throw in what ifs as you describe. What happens if we have COVID well, not every year, geez, that'd be awful, wouldn't it? But what happens if a COVID event turns up, and how does that affect your planning? As I say, what happens if you become poorly? It's always the nasty things that we have to consider. What happens if you become poorly and you can't work? What happens if you get made redundant? Or more cheerfully, if we do build up money a little bit quicker, what happens if you do retire a bit sooner? And we can build and plot all those things. But as I say, it's also important to then regularly review them, because your outlook and your views on life inevitably will change. And especially if you're going through divorce at the moment, whereby emotionally you're so stressed and everything's up in the air, that actually 2, 3, 4 years down the line, when things have just settled down a little bit, hopefully, and you're a little bit calmer, you may well then want to make different decisions about the direction you take your life in. And it's at that point we can go back to these original cash flow forecasts and and input the new data and see how that changes things in the future for you.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Henry. That's really wonderful. And I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.
Lovely. Cheers, Susie. See you soon. Bye.
And I think what we just finished off there with Henry is, you don't just do your financial plan. It's an ongoing relationship that you have with your financial planner, and it becomes just part of your life planning. And in a way, it's something we should all do, but often it takes a tricky situation like divorce to kick us up the butt to do all these things and get it ready. And if you've got kids and you want to know, can I afford university in 5 years' time, that's how you're going to know, and you'll be able to make some really good predictions and work out whether you need to get that second job or not. So we're now moving to the educational side. We're back onto the masterclass, so get ready. And today we are still in, it's a very long section, this divorce first aid on the divorce masterclass, and you can see from the QR code, if you want to access it, you can. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there that you can get for free. So particularly if you're at the early stages, it's a really useful course to look at. So we're looking at tweezers, and we're going to be talking about, I've called this section tweezers because it's painful but necessary. Time to get tough. Don't indulge in the victim mentality. We're also going to talk about people who take it to extremes, a very long divorce and throwing money at lawyers. And I want also to mention changing family forms. Do we all need to let go of the past during this process? So the message here is really stay solution focused, busting the mediation myth that it only works for people who are getting on well. We'll also be looking at that. Now, I like this quote. Robert Anderson once said, "In every marriage more than a week old, there are grounds for divorce. The trick is to find and continue to find grounds for marriage." So we're going to talk about painful but necessary. So the whole victim thing can impact on the workplace. So when I've been there, when you're in that really, really bad state and you feel the world is against you and it's just not fair, you're going to work, you are going to impact the people around you. And and treating someone who's in that state like a victim isn't actually going to help them much. So once they've done the shock stage and they're moving into anger, or maybe further on in the process, then it may be time to be a little bit cruel to be kind, or that's how it might feel at the time. Now, I must say, this is not what you do right in the beginning when somebody's in shock. I'm talking about, they've probably gone through anger and they've just got a little bit stuck in poor me. Okay, so you need to judge this carefully in how you help people in this stage. So some people just drag their divorce out that bit longer than necessary, like perhaps 12 years longer. So welcome to Rosendale versus Rosendale, a court battle local lawyers described as one of the longest ever divorce cases in Orange County. No fewer than 6 lawyers were employed over the years by the two litigants, Warren Rosendale, who was 79, and his perpetually ex-wife, Carol Rosendale, 74. A half dozen judges had heard the case. The fight had frayed emotions to the edge of numbness and changed the rules for prenuptial agreements. The battle, of course, had sucked money in vast amounts. Legal fees easily exceeded $100,000, and that doesn't include court costs. Carol and Warren Rosendale's divorce case, at 12 years and 8 months and counting at the time I wrote this, so hopefully it's over by now, had by then outlasted their marriage. Mr. and Mrs. Kavanagh here in the UK, both UK lawyers, managed to squander a chunk of their £3 million fortune in disputes about their 3 children and the financial aspects of their separation. Whilst married for just 10 years, they then spent 5 years litigating, and their combined legal costs alone were said to be £900,000. So those couples may not have good friends to tell them, no, it's time to stop, or maybe they wouldn't listen anyway. But our attitudes to what we see as acceptable or normal have more power over others than we might think. For example, we talk of broken families, but what about those families that break up but are not broken? On the morning of Friday the 23rd of December, a pre-recorded sequence of my own blended family eating together was shown on BBC Breakfast TV, with Dr. Catherine Rake as the expert interviewed about the modern family. In the Scottish Widows Report Centre for the Modern Family, Dr. Rake says of the research, people seem quite liberal around form. In other words, they recognise that different arrangements, married couples, lone parents, grandparents, siblings, aunts and uncles, can all create the strong, caring relationships that are the hallmark of a good family life. So just as legal and wellbeing professionals are learning to cooperate and take a multidisciplinary approach to the family breakup process, such as lawyers and mediators who are starting to work more with financial planners like Henry we saw earlier, so families themselves are learning to adapt to a more cooperative way of living when the conventional family form becomes unachievable or undesirable. Yet society seems to be lagging behind in accepting these changes. 22% of families in the study said their family type was not valued by society. 18% feel actively judged by society for the family model in which they live. But the statistics take on a deeper significance when you include the 43% of people over 60 who live alone, and the 25% of this group living alone with no family nearby. So why is it there's so much social pressure to have a traditional family form, when surely the emphasis should be on encouraging families of all forms to collaborate and work towards long-term healthy relationships? And this becomes critical during divorce, where social pressures should be towards supporting that family to have a non-aggressive breakup. And that includes giving them the right information. So the most irritating phrase I hear is that mediation only works for some people. I know that with domestic violence, it's one of the reasons for refusing mediation during divorce. But even in that circumstance, mediation can, in some circumstances, offer a very empowering way for the abused person to feel supported by the mediator. Especially you can do it online now, so that really does help that situation, and able to create a sustainable settlement with their ex-partner in a situation where the power balance is less skewed than in the home situation. Shuttle mediation, where the mediator moves backwards and forwards, and again you can do this on online mediation as well. You don't even have to see them, look at them if that's really stressful for you because of the situation you've been through, and this can help keep the couple feeling safe when being in the same room is not a viable option. Court experience can be deeply traumatic, especially when children become part of what the parents are fighting over. So knowing what to talk who to talk to, of course, in all of this is key. And taking responsibility for your own divorce is only tough if you try doing it all on your own. So I do encourage people who access online divorce options, for example, and information, to not be disheartened if filling in the paperwork suddenly becomes complex. So if you need to get agreement first on how you'll be co-parenting, then mediation can be used just for that part. As an impartial advisor is going to be really useful. You don't have to dive straight into the finances. If you have complex property issues and pensions to sort out, then you talk to a specialised financial planner like Henry, which of course is not the same as a normal IFA or financial advisor. And once you have sorted the parenting aspects and the finances, then using an online divorce option is, if your divorce is very simple, is suddenly far less complex, and you certainly have a much higher chance of keeping it all out of court and not ending up with one of those disastrous marriages we talked about and divorce cases that we talked about at the beginning. So to end with this, we've got C. Joy Bell stated, "There is no such thing as a broken family. Family is family and is not determined by marriage certificates, divorce papers and adoption documents. Families are made in the heart." Now we move to one of my favourite parts, which is the shared stories. Hello Anita, and welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today. It's always great to have a real live person for the shared story, and you're doing some exciting things in your life which you're going to tell us about in a minute. But first, you do what I would call a balancing act at the moment in your divorce situation. Are you happy to share a little bit with us?
Yes, indeed. First of all, it's so lovely to be here, Susan. I think that what you're doing with the divorce TV show and all the work you're doing is immeasurably helpful, and I think long overdue, to be honest, because of the way that, particularly for women, that we're always on the back foot in the past. So I want to say congratulations, it's amazing.
Thank you.
So yes, I am doing a bit of a balancing act at the moment. So just in brief, I'm separated from my husband 2 years and just going through divorce at the moment, and I'm doing it in a very modern way online. However, I have got a mediator that both my husband and myself, we both trust, and she's so used to filling out forms and etc., because she used to be head of HR at large businesses, that we feel that she could actually help us not get bogged down with the mire of information that's needed, but actually to help really get the process through in as comfortable a way as possible, with as least tension as possible. So us going through a third party, a wonderful friend, I think was a really great thing to do, to be honest. Fantastic.
Yeah, reaching out for help, absolutely key. And your what's the sort of living situation? Because of course a lot of families, partly because of COVID or because they haven't, because until they sort the divorce, they're in the same house and there's other family members. So perhaps you can paint a picture of your world.
Okay, so we live in our home together. So the last 2 years, Steve and I have been living in the same house, and he has a room which was our bedroom, and I have a bedroom somewhere else in the house. I also have my eldest son and my eldest daughter and her husband and my grandson live with us, so they have a little apartment in the house. My youngest daughter, and because of COVID, her boyfriend have been living with us, and also my son, my adopted son, lives with us as well. And because of our financial situation, because I lost a business a few years back, we also rent a room in our house. So it's quite a busy household, but I love people, so you know what, and I'm a great fixer. So when things really came to meltdown, I thought, right, what am I going to do to fix these things? And I think a lot of women do that. We fix everything. So we're living together until the divorce. We're selling our house. I'm also selling my business and going through a divorce. So this is a very sort of interesting year for us.
And what are your tips for those who are, keeping a lid on it, managing? It is hard to be in the same space. I mean, are you able to hide away? Do you have your own space that you can get to where nobody can bother you? Because I always think that's absolutely essential.
We're quite lucky here because I work from a home office. It's a very large home office, so I can work from here. We still eat together, and in fact, my husband cooks meals. So and he also looks after the shopping and things like that. So we just felt that everyone had to make a contribution, because selling the house meant we had to pull together, because selling the house would give us the financial freedom then to move on with our lives. So you have to put your differences aside as much as you can, but it's actually quite hard. Also, I found that I've really drawn on my patience. I don't bite. It's quite hard for me because I'm quite a fiery person, but I think you say it really well. You say, make peace your biggest weapon, and I think that's genius. So for me, it's peace and calm, and what do I need to do that to keep my mental health? So I run, and I do yoga, and I make sure I have my girlfriends around me, and I walk my dog, and all of those things are really good for your mental health. So you just have to protect yourself and just take a deep breath, and also trust that the future is going to be better.
I think that magic, two of the things in particular you've just said there about, looking after your mental health, your own well-being by doing active things and healing things, but also for your husband, I'm guessing that it's often feeling like a spare part when there's a divorce. The men often do really struggle with it, and that can make them a bit more difficult than even usual. So to be able to cook the meals, to have a role to play, to be working as a team for the whole family, I imagine is a godsend, actually, because everybody's confidence is knocked, and to be able to participate and be acknowledged for that support, I think it's wonderful that you've allowed that opportunity and that he's allowed that opportunity. And I don't underestimate how difficult it must be some of the time. So gold star to you, girl. And the foundations you're laying for when you get that when you've all moved on and it's all sorted, it's going to be like, it's gold fairy dust, isn't it, really, that you're sowing at the moment. So let's go a little just briefly. I'd love to know more about what you're involved in now, because you've got a new business, and it's very much heart-led, isn't it?
It is indeed. So if I take my personal scenario, I have built a business, I've lost a business, I'm getting divorced, I have children that some of them are leaving home, some have left home, we're all together. I mentor people, and I do a lot of work with other women, and I'm a real advocate for women in business. So that's me all over. Now, I've identified that there are 5 major areas of trauma that women have to deal with, or hopefully don't have to, but we're talking about divorce here. So yes, and those 5 areas are divorce, bereavement of a partner or your husband. The other is an early onset illness or an accident that makes him incapacitated. The other is inheriting a business or businesses, and the other is inheriting a fortune. So these 5 areas really are times when your life has to pivot, but you are just paralyzed, and you don't know what to do for the best. And as Harriet said earlier on, the men very often look after finances. The women don't really have a hand on it as much as, and that's absolutely right. And I was guilty of that as well. Okay, so I'm living it. So I decided to form an exclusive, discreet, private wealth and well-being office, and it's called Sephora Private. And what I've set out to do is to combine wealth with well-being. The wealth part is important to sustain women when they're looking at security for the future, protecting their families. So we have to make sure that we look after the money, but we have to be in control of it, and that's a big learning curve. And then we also have to make sure that we are looking after our well-being and our mental health, and that's really important, because that helps us then to get out of that situation and to face the world. And not everyone is going to be going to be working with you for your benefit, really. So for example, if it's wealth, you may have lots of people saying, invest your money now, protect it, do this, do that, I can help you. But what I do with my clients is say, stop, take a deep breath, stand back, let's just think about you. The decision making can wait, but first of all, we need to look at your life, okay, and what the future holds for you. So I've broken my method into 8 parts, really, and we work our way through them, and at the end we get to purpose, aspiration, and legacy, because that then will inform how you want your wealth to be managed. Then you can ask the questions, or then you can brief whoever's looking after your wealth as to what needs to happen. But most women have never been asked what their aspirations are. And neither have they been asked about their purpose. What would you like your purpose to be now you're divorced, now your situation has changed? And also, what do you want your legacy to be? Men, very often we talk about men and legacies, what they're going to leave behind. But actually, for women, it's really important to know what your legacy is. It's really important to know what your life is for, even in light of these five different scenarios. So my job is to work with women, work through everything from well-being, your contribution, your good giving, your husband or life partner, hobbies, your fitness and your health, and at the end of that, then I can put a plan together that helps that lady move on with her life, and then move on to looking at her wealth and how that is going to help her to get to where she needs to be. So that's what I do primarily.
And
it's very
I love that idea of that, having that breathing space, stand back, because that is, you know, there's so much pressure. And I also love, I was going to put my hand up for the last one, so sudden vast amounts of money, but actually it is a massive problem, isn't it? If you don't know what to do with it, your life changes, and it's not always for the better, initially anyway. So definitely the work that you do would make the perfect client for Henry, because he sits down and he goes, what do you want? What do you want to create? So if they can go, right, I've nailed it, I know what my purpose is, and long term, you know, that's the perfect client for a financial planner, because they want to do beyond the divorce as well into the future. So, and it's fantastic. I know you've got a fantastic, really interesting team, so I'll get you back at a later date, and we'll be great to talk through some of the fascinating people that you've got involved in your sort of support network for people. Thank you so much, Anita, and certainly I'll be tagging you in after all of this, and please put details about Sephora Private in the comments of all the different streams. Bye bye for now. Lovely to see you again.
And you.
So we're going to do a quick roundup. So I'm running a bit late, but I just don't like to stop people when I'm really interested in what they're saying. And we're going to have a fast one here with QR codes. We've got the workshop here, and this is the new updated QR code, which will take you to the current divorce financial workshop, which is happening on the 10th of September. And we obviously limited spaces because it's very interactive. We do it on Zoom, and you get lots of information and resources prior to it as well. So the earlier you get your ticket, the better. And of course, everyone knows how to use Zoom now, so I'm sure there'll be no technical problems. But if you do have any, obviously I will help you. But you'll be able to get everything you need from the beginnings of how to get started, understanding the process, or if you're stuck in the middle and it's all not going well, there's collaborative lawyers, mediators. I've got obviously financial planning. I'm creating some videos right now of some of the participants, which I'll be sharing very soon. And here we have, of course, our lovely divorce Facebook group, Best Way to Divorce. So a couple of comments have come through, which I may actually have come from the group. I'm just going to read them out now. Thanks, Linda Morris. You asking, how do you stay married but not? We own a business. It tells me I can't get an attorney. Right, what I'm going to do, Linda, is find you off this and give you a link. And the best thing is to have a short free navigation call with me, and we'll get you on track. Erica, lovely, thanks for, you love that comment, families are made in the heart. It is beautiful, isn't it? And I'm looking forward to having you on the show very soon. And this is a secret divorce group, though not so secret these days. It's a very affordable way to have ongoing support, and I keep lots of useful resources in there. 30 days free, and I've actually got a little video of one of our lovely ladies who's in there, who's just going to tell you a bit about it.
Have you found it useful?
Yeah, and particularly for what you say, and I think Henry had said, because you know I found Henry and I've spoken to a mediator, got a mediator from you, and being able to just ask those questions. Henry said I'm the most active person in there, and the one who always is asking the questions, go, but what about this and what about that? And it's good, and it's also, I think, really helpful to know it's not on Facebook, and that there's other people going through the same stuff, and you know that in itself is invaluable. So yeah, really good. Thanks, Susan.
So it's a lovely little group, and it does give you, because often you might have just a little question, and you don't necessarily need to employ a lawyer to answer it. It might not even be a legal question. So I've also got lots of other resources in there. There's videos. You can have ongoing support in a healthy community, and I'm keeping it so accessible, because I really believe it's really important that everyone has support during this difficult time to help them keep everything on track.
A little plug there for it. So come and join us. It was where we all hang out and share advice and support each other. So we move to the healing side. So get yourself comfortable, get ready, and I'm about to introduce you to Britta. Hello, Britta, and welcome. So lovely to have you here with us. And you have to turn your sound back on. You've been very good. You've muted yourself earlier, but we can't hear you at the moment. So if you can pop your sound on there on Skype, there'll be that.
Hello,
you're in loud and clear, because it would definitely spoil the experience.
I didn't want to disturb.
You were so good, but
I was so mesmerised listening to all your lovely stories, and it's amazing because, you know, making peace your weapon of choice. I love that, because peace is exactly a little bit that I also hopefully am going to be able to support people with in my meditation that I'll do in a short while. So thank you for having me here.
And thank you for being here. Yeah, I think it was the first show I did, there was a lovely healing at the end, and I turned my sound off so that I wouldn't make a noise. And then I did the whole outro completely mute because I was so dazed I didn't notice. So you're in good company. But yeah, tell me a little bit about the work that you do, and what were you going to do with us today?
So very briefly, I'm a naturopath, kinesiologist and energy healer with over 23 years of experience. And I pretty much see people from all walks of life. Anyone has experienced trauma. And obviously, as we know, experiencing life challenges such as divorce and separation gives us opportunity, unfortunately, to generate a lot of negative vibrations and feelings such as grief, anger, fear, despair. And working with energy means that every emotion is a signature vibration, and actually they're tiny molecules that can become lodged in any parts of our body, and if they're not released, can be the seed for future imbalances and disease. So when people come to see me, I'm the one who helps them release the emotional aspects that they have maybe not been able to see, or they're hidden, or they've suppressed it for so long that they're no longer aware that they're even there, because we've been conditioned to believe that if we ignore them long enough, all these unpleasant feelings, and just plow on through, they might just go away. But it's actually the opposite. It creates imbalances. So that's where I come into it.
That massively resonates with me, because I very much got on with it with 3 small children, and it was about a year and a half later, I think maybe 2 years later, that my appendix just burst. I've still got it because I didn't notice. I was so busy, and it's just like I couldn't understand. The doctor was confused because I was quite a healthy person, and other things, you know, you hold all this stuff in your body, and so I'm really glad to have you here. And I cannot stress enough that if you're going through any form of trauma, you must get it out of your body somewhere or another, because it will come back to bite you. So what you're going to take us, perhaps give us a little idea of what we need to do, and
yes,
then,
I think what I would like to do, because I'm aware of the time and I know you're running late, I would like to use the meditation, because meditation is a powerful tool that gives us opportunity to just connect within us, which we normally don't do. And if even a 5-minute, 10-minute meditation can be really profoundly healing. And tonight I wanted to do a little bit of a heart healing meditation, which because of the center of the healing, we need to look after our heart, not just physically but also emotionally. And I think just taking a moment to connect and allow us to just connect with the heart center can be profoundly healing. And I know that the healing of these meditations continues on for 6 hours after you've finished meditation. So it's a real powerful healing, even though it may appear just a very brief meditation.
Well, I think that deserves a good 10 minutes, don't you? So I'll let you go ahead, and yes. I'm going to be a willing participant from over here.
Please, yes. So what I would like you to do is I just want you to sit yourself in a comfortable position, and I want you to place your hands into your lap. And then I want you to close your eyes, and I would like you to start tuning into your breath. So what I would like you to do is take a deep breath in through your nose, all the way down into your stomach, and out through your mouth, just like that. And again, taking a nice deep breath in through your nose, all the way down into your stomach and out through your mouth. Just allowing yourself to feel the ground beneath the soles of your feet as you're becoming aware and tuning into your body. And as you're breathing in and out, just gently make yourself aware if you're holding tension anywhere in your body. So maybe in your jaw, your shoulders, or your back, or your stomach. And allow with your next exhalation any tension to dissolve. And take another nice deep breath in for me. And out slowly and gently. And so as you are now connecting with your inner world, I want you to take one hand and place it on your heart center. Just take a left or the right hand, just place it where you feel your heart center is, and just allow this presence of your energy to connect with your heart. And some people experience a subtle tingle or a sense of ache, especially when you're going through the transition of divorce or separation. This part of your body can be very, very achy and contracted. So breathing in, focusing onto this connection with your heart center. And as you exhale, allowing yourself to feel any emotions rise, and just allowing any emotion to appear, not judging it, just breathing, honoring what you're feeling, honoring yourself. And just breathe in and out, just connecting with your heart and your feelings. And if there is something appearing, such as grief or hurt, guilt, despair, just as you breathe in peace into your heart. And as you exhale, release this emotion just effortlessly. Your body knows exactly what to do. And just as you are exploring this feeling in your heart center, I want you now imagine that you are standing outside and it's night time. And you're standing outside in this beautiful dark indigo blue sky, covered with beautiful stars twinkling. And as you see those stars twinkling and you're mesmerized by this beauty, you see one star slowly descending towards you, just gently descending, closer and closer, so close that you can pick a star just for you, which I want you to now take into your hand. Imagine you see or sense the star in your hand, and you can see this beautiful light sparkling, and the light in your hand as it's pulsing. And this star was made for you. This is unconditional love. And I want you now to place this star into your heart center. Just allow it to blend with your heart as you breathe in. And slowly exhale. And feel this unconditional love, this love that you remember. And you can feel this energy gently expanding in your heart center. Just a subtle warm glow of peace. Remembering that you are lovable, significant, and that you have everything that you need already there. And you are loved. And very gently and slowly just place your hand back into your lap. And just feel for a moment just a subtle wave of feeling just a little bit more peaceful. And then very gently, very slowly but still relaxed, bring your awareness back into the room where you're in. And when you're ready, gently Open your eyes. And that's just a little heart meditation, just something to take you into a more peaceful place, a loving place where you belong. Everybody has a birthright to be loved and to feel safe, even during a separation. And that is my little meditation for you, because I'm aware of the time. I would love to go on.
That was so beautiful. I'm going to be replaying this and listening to it again tonight. Is the beauty of these. You can listen to the meditations again. I guarantee somebody out there is sobbing at this point. So virtual hug to them. It's very, very powerful meditation. And I do, I know a few years ago, if I'd done that, I would have been in pieces. And that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
That's a good thing. You've got to let it out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's very beautiful.
Absolutely.
Thank you, and I hope you'll come back and do another one again. Maybe we can squeeze it 15 minutes next time, because that went so fast.
I'd love to. It did go very, very quickly, and I was hoping to be able to get people a little bit tuned in, because I know it's difficult sometimes to just all quickly sit, relax, here we go. But I hope that people out there found a little bit of getting a taster for it. And if anybody wants a one-to-one session, I'm here for them. They just need to contact me with support. I'm here to help.
And we'll make sure that I'll actually add your details to all the different streams so people can find you, but they can rewind and watch again. And I think that would be very powerful, because they never wear out, these meditations. You can use them many, many times. Yeah, that would be lovely.
Thank you so much, Susie. Yes.
Thank you, Britta. You take care now. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Oh, another beautiful finale. Thank you, Britta. And in the war of divorce, on the battlefield of family separation, always, always make peace your weapon of choice. See you next Friday.